everybody, and welcome to another edition of Quick Trivia with Mike, right here at East Castle Place, that weekly game show where we test your knowledge of very familiar and sometimes very obscure trivia. Hopefully you have some fun with this, and I know we're having a lot of fun putting it on. My name's Mike Brever. I'm the host of the show, and I'm always, as always, joined by my producer and cameraman, Scott McFerrin. You don't actually get to see Scott, but I guarantee you he's in the background, and he also is very instrumental because he does a lot of things that you're not aware of. He chooses the bumper music that we use and things like that. So let's get right into this week's show, shall we? As you remember, we always give you 3 topics to begin with. We review the previous week's 3, first of all, and we reveal who the winner was from last week. So let's get into it. Our first question delved a little bit with Milwaukee trivia. You know, I love to test your knowledge of Milwaukee trivia. And we've had items related to Milwaukee City Hall and the founding fathers of Milwaukee, what year we were founded, etc. So there's all kinds of very interesting Milwaukee trivia we've used. But last week we talked to you a little bit about the Milwaukee County Zoo. We talked about the fact that it has always been known as one of America's best natural habitats for wildlife. That is, up until about 2010, 2015, something like that, some national zoo societies and animal rights groups recognized the fact that Milwaukee had allowed our elephant enclosure to lapse in terms of national standards. As a result of that, Milwaukee County, the owner of the zoo, along with the Milwaukee County Zoo Society, the Milwaukee Zoo Society, embarked on a tremendous fundraising campaign and enlarged the elephant enclosure. We revealed to you that we've actually expanded the herd. Belle came to the zoo in 2019 and joined Ruth and Brittany. So now the elephant herd at the Milwaukee County Zoo is 3, and maybe it's going to keep growing. I'm not really sure. A very good friend of mine actually was the architect on the new elephant enclosure, Bill Bonnick. I'll ask him next time I see him. Maybe he can give me some insight into whether or not the herd will continue to grow. We pointed out, however, that the zoo has finite space, and it's already fully used. So if you expand something in the Milwaukee County Zoo, something else has to be taken away. When we expanded the elephant enclosure, a habitat for an animal ceased to exist, and it may never come back to the zoo again. I'm not really sure. We'll have to wait and see. And I asked you for trivia question number 1. What was that animal that used to be at the Milwaukee County Zoo that in 2019 lost its habitat? It was the timber wolf. The timber wolf used to have a large wooded area in the Milwaukee County Zoo, very close to the giraffes and the elephants, the hippos, in order to expand the elephant enclosure. The timber wolf enclosure was taken away, and it may not ever come back. I'm not sure. We'll see. So that was the answer to question number 1. The timber wolf no longer resides at the Milwaukee County Zoo. Our second question had to do a little bit with astrological issues. We talked about the moon. We revealed some of the relationships between the moon and Earth. We talked about the fact that tides on Earth are in fact impacted by the moon. We also talked about the fact that the moon actually has quakes, and those are determined by the Earth's impact on the moon. We revealed to you that really the Russians were the first to land something on the moon. In 1959, they landed an unmanned vehicle on the moon. However, in 1969, the United States regained superiority in the space race by putting the first man on the moon. Apollo 11 was the first manned mission that landed on the moon. So those are some of the things we talked about. We also revealed that there have only been 12 people that have stepped foot on the moon. All of them were Americans. The last one was in 1972. Are we destined to return to the moon soon? I don't know. History will determine whether we will. I'm not sure. We then talked about the fact that there is a tremendous difference in gravity on the moon in comparison to the Earth. We talked about what an easy way it would be to go on a diet, because your weight is a function of your body mass and the pull of gravity. By an equal amount, the reduction in the gravitational pull of the moon would reduce the amount that you weigh. What an easy way to lose weight if you don't mind going to the moon to do it. We asked you if the moon had 1/3 the gravitational pull of the Earth, 1/4 the gravitational pull of the Earth, 1/6 the gravitational pull of the Earth, or 1/10 the gravitational pull of the Earth. We had lots of guesses from a lot of you, and I appreciate those of you that called in or emailed me with your answers. The correct answer is 1/6. The gravitational pull on the moon is 1/6 the gravitational pull on Earth. So if you weighed 240 pounds and you stepped foot on the moon, it would only be recorded as 40 pounds. A great way to go on a diet. Let me know if you're ever in the mood. Maybe take me along. I'd love to see what it's like sometime. The third question we talked about delved a little bit into television history. You know that I really enjoy some old television trivia questions. We've talked in the past about some things involving Gilligan's Island. We talked about Newton Minnow. We talked about the first television station in Milwaukee being in 1953. But last week, we told you a little bit about series finales. We talked about the 5 highest rated series finales in television history. We revealed to you that the 5th highest rated series finales in TV history was Friends. 52.5 million people tuned in 2004 to view the last show with Chandler and Joey and Monica and Phoebe and Rachel and Ross. What a great show it was. In 1998, the 4th highest rated finale of all time, Seinfeld, was viewed by 73.6 million people. We watched the antics of Jerry, Elaine, George, and Cosmo Kramer for the very last time. The 2nd highest rated television finale of all time was Cheers. In 1993, it ended its 11-season run, and it was viewed by 84.4 million people. The highest rated series finale of all time, you probably knew this, it was MASH. The Korean War situation comedy starring Alan Alda and all the rest of them. It went off the air in 1983 after 11 seasons to a viewership of 105 million people. Now, I think, you know, series finales tend to have the largest viewership for the show, especially if it was much beloved. We talked about the fact that probably a series finale will never be able to surpass what MASH had. 105 million people. That's over 1/3 of the population of the United States today. Well, maybe it's 1/3 of the population of the United States today. In fact, the only higher rated show in the history of American television has been a Super Bowl. I'm not sure which one it was, but to get 105 million people viewing, I mean, that with all the television stations we have at our disposal today, that's probably not going to happen again. Our third and final trivia question for you last week was, what was the 3rd highest rated series finale of all time? We revealed that it went off the air in 1967, and unlike the other series finales, this was an hour-long drama. The others were situation comedies. in 1967, 78 million people tuned in to see if Dr. Richard Kimball could finally catch up with the one-armed man on The Fugitive. You all know that for that television show, David Jansen was the star. It actually was remade into a movie many years later with Harrison Ford as the lead actor. That actually became somewhat of a franchise as additional movies were made about the federal agents that tracked down Dr. Richard Kimball. There were some similarities between the TV show and the television show, but you know, there were some differences as well. Not everything was similar. Lieutenant Gerard was a character that was in both of them. However, in the TV series, the one-armed man was a sole perpetrator who did in fact kill the wife of Dr. Richard Kimball. In the movie, the one-armed man was a tool of someone else. He did in fact kill the wife of Dr. Richard Kimball, but it was a partner of Dr. Kimball's who was the person who was behind it all. So there you have it all. It was the Timberwolves, it was 1/6 the gravitational pull on the Earth, and it was The Fugitive. Those were our 3 trivia questions for last week. In addition to that, you all know that we have music that begins the show and ends the show. We call it our bumper music. If we have a tie, a number of people get the same number of answers correct. We use the identification of the bumper music as a tiebreaker. We had two people got all the questions correct. Sandra Meyer and Teresa Sundberg. Teresa Sundberg, however, was the only one who identified the bumper music. This past week, my favorite Broadway show, absolutely beyond all else, Les Miserables, the life and travails of Jean Valjean. On my own, one of the most beautiful pieces from that musical was our bumper music last week. Teresa actually correctly identified that. As a result of that, Teresa is our winner of the week. Now you know we have a brand new function here on Quick Trivia with Mike. We no longer have a bottle of wine that we give out. We have a traveling trophy. You can see it here. Teresa is going to have her picture taken with the trophy. She will be on Touchtown for the following week, being identified as the winner of Quick Trivia with Mike. So we'll be taking care of that a little bit later, but this is the traveling trophy. You'll see Teresa with it this week. Those are the wrap-ups for this past week. Let's get into this week, shall we? I've got 3 wonderful new questions for you. I think you're going to have a really, really good time with it. First of all, we're going to delve off a little bit into some science, specifically physics and chemistry. The life of Marie Solomea Sklodowska. You may know her better as Madame Curie or Madame Curie, depending upon how you pronounce it. Madame Curie is actually a Polish national, but she emigrated to France and lived her life as a French citizen, a French naturalized citizen. Born in 1867, passed away in 1934. She lived her life as a naturalized French physicist and chemist. She was, in fact, the first woman to win the Nobel Prize. And she's the only woman to win it 2 times. Ironically, she won it in 2 different fields of study, physics and chemistry. Madame Curie actually developed the theory of radioactivity, and it was a term that she herself actually coined. She founded the Curie Institute in Paris for the major study of medical research. It actually exists to this day. Her first Nobel Prize was actually shared with her husband, Pierre Curie. So the two of them worked together on the first Nobel Prize. She hypothesized that radiation was not caused by the interaction of molecules, but from the atom itself. Ultimately, this disproved that molecules were indivisible. And as you know, splitting the atom opened up a whole new field of science, not only for medicine, not only for future studies, but also in warfare. It's what led to the creation of the atomic bomb and the nuclear bomb and things like that. Ultimately, it also became a new source of energy, and it exists to this day. Specifically, Madame Curie discovered the existence of polonium and radium. She also invented mobile X-ray units, which were used specifically in World War I. And it is thought that she treated over 1 million soldiers. She realized that getting treatment to soldiers as quickly after injuries was key to their ability to recover to their full potential. Having an X-ray available to fully diagnose the extent of their wounds really was an asset. And so she went out very close to the battlefields with her mobile X-ray units, and she was able to do this with and for the soldiers. However, you now know that she was a forerunner in science. She was a groundbreaking scientist. Not only because of the wonderful things that she discovered, but because she was a woman. Women scientists, women in academia, by and large, were not that well pronounced at the turn of the 20th century. So Madame Curie was really a groundbreaking individual. In spite of all that, since her death in 1934, no one has read her original scientific journals. Why not? In the last 86 years, no one has read her scientific journals. Why? Now let's go off a little bit into radio trivia. I really love old radio shows. In my car, I have Sirius XM, and if you have that as well, you know, on channel 148, you get some of the old radio classics, and I really love some of those old shows, and I know you probably do as well. The golden age of radio was from the late 20s until the 50s. During that time, specifically in the 1930s, it was the dominant home entertainment system. People were able to access entertainment from outside their homes and bring it in. TV really hadn't come into its own yet. So the types of things people used to have to go to vaudeville or movie theaters for, they could at least get an audio version of that right in their own homes. Ironically, it was finally pushed out in the 1950s, not only by TV, but also because of advances in radio and music. Specifically, top 40 music had a great deal of influence in pushing out the half-hour programming of radio. The old Gunsmoke episodes and Have Gun Will Travel, those types of things got pushed out because people were listening by and large to rock and roll. So people had moved on to a new type of entertainment, and I know people really enjoyed it. However, during the Golden Age, the adaptation of books like A Tale of Two Cities, H.G. Wells' The War of the Worlds, which was interpreted by Orson Welles into a national phenomena back in 1938. It caused great hysteria. All listening to radios. Basil Rathbone and Nigel Bruce recreating some of their Sherlock Holmes episodes from the movies right there on radio. During World War II, radio played a very big part in entertaining our GIs. The Armed Forces Radio Network brought programming right to the GIs overseas, and they could enjoy the wonderful entertainment of Jack Benny and Bing Crosby and Bob Hope and all the rest of them overseas while they were fighting for our freedom. That era also brought new stars to the forefront, stars like Frank Sinatra. Some people that you might not know as well, Alfredo Antonini. Those were mega stars brought about by the creation of radio as an influence on our culture. And they were born through this medium. And again, it worked right through the creation of TV, which saw the natural progression of some of the shows that we listened to on radio. Gunsmoke, Have Gun Will Travel, Dragnet, and others. In addition to that, many of the stars on those old radio shows became television stars, but not necessarily on the same programming. William Conrad, Jack Webb. Jack Webb is kind of an anomaly because with Dragnet, he stayed on the show that he made famous. But when people looked at William Conrad, they realized that he just didn't look like Matt Dillon, so he wasn't going to be Marshal Matt Dillon on Gunsmoke. That brings us to our second trivia question of the day. An old radio program. An insurance investigator whose moniker during that time was he had the action-packed expense account. Who was that insurance investigator and what was the name of that show? An insurance investigator with the action-packed expense account. Who was it and what was the name of the show? That's question number 2. Our third question today. A little bit of a what am I? You know I love these as well. We've given you some old flags. We gave you a kitchen toaster a couple weeks ago. Here's your latest. What am I? I mentioned to you that the toaster actually would look like a toaster today, except it has a housing over it for your own safety. All those wires and metal prongs hanging out, those are concealed by decorative housing to keep you safe. I'm not sure you could look at today's and say that the contemporary version looks like this. But your third question of the day, what am I? So there you have it, folks. Those are our 3 questions of the day, and those also are our 3 answers from last week. For those of you that enjoyed playing, you know there's several ways you can get the questions or the answers to me. You can email them to me at mbrever@eastcastleplace.com. You can call me at my desk, 963-8425. You could also put the answers on a piece of paper and ask the concierge to put it in my mailbox, or come by my office this weekend and slide them under the door. Get your answers to me by Monday at noon. Maybe you can win the traveling trophy for the week and be shown on Touchtown over the coming week. That's how you play. That's how you get the answers to me. If I gave you the phone number and the email address too quickly, just call the front desk. Ask them for Mike's phone number or email address. They'll be happy to share them with you in a much slower pace so that you can get them. So that's our show for this week. I'd like to thank the management of ECTV, our president Tyler Gudex, our general manager Laura Wengler, our producer Scott McFerrin, and my artistic director Cooper Ledvina. I even owe Cooper a special thank you this week. He helped me formulate some of the questions. So he's been known to do some of the research for me on some of these, and he really played a big role helping me this week. And as I said earlier, Scott McFerrin does much more than you realize. So listen to the bumper music as we exit today. That'll be your tiebreaker for the coming week as well. Identify that music in addition to the answers to the 3 questions. You could be the lucky winner next week. That's all the time we have for this week's show. That's Quick Trivia with Mike. I'm your host, Mike Brever. Until next week, I ask you to please stay safe, be smart, and be patient. we will all be together once again, sharing that great East Castle Place hospitality. So long, everybody.